What's up, guys? Got a little repair today on this Chevy hood. I got a whole bunch of brand new parts. The fender was pretty much smoked, so we got a new fender and grill pieces, which I already got prepped up in the booth. And then I sanded the scratches out on this hood, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw a little bit of UV primer on this and sand it down and get it in the booth as well. So I'm gonna be showing you just how to paint this little black truck and do this little repair. It's just something real quick. Haven't had a chance to do more in-depth videos, been a little bit overwhelmed and busy, but you take it as you can get it, you know what I mean? So let's get it whipped up and get her done. All right, got my 3M primer gun, disposable tips. I got a 1-2 in this, and I got some Sickens UV primer. My Speeds Hector was on back order, so that was a while ago, so I have to run through this Sickens that I use. Give it about 3 coats, a minute flash with the UV light in between coats, and we should be good. For curing, I like the UV Dent Fix light. Comes with a tripod. You just set her up like so. I got this set to, I believe, 2 minutes. Let's see. Got it set to 1:15, so we'll do about 1:15. Sort of like that. We'll probably lift it up a little bit. And we'll do about 1:15. Make sure it's completely dry, and then we'll do, like I said, 2 to 3 coats, and we'll sand it down and be ready for paint. All right, and after a minute or so, the best way to check if it's cured, you take the back of your nail and you take it across the UV primer, and if it doesn't leave an impression, you know it's dry. It should feel completely smooth. So we'll do 2 more coats, and we'll be ready to sand it. So whenever you prime something, you want to start from as far back as possible and then move closer to the most damaged area, and that's just to ensure that the damaged area has 3 coats of primer and there's not 3 coats of primer where it's not needed. So you only have 1 coat out here. We'll do our second coat a couple of inches in, so we'll have 2 coats here, 1 coat here, and then we'll do our third coat right over the damage, so it'll only be 3 coats over the damage, and then it'll be 2 coats and then 1 coat. And then we grab some 320 on a block, and we'll just run it over these cut throughs just to make sure that it's completely smooth and that it won't ring out later when we paint it. And ringing out means that this is too far, this is much lower, like where the metal is, it's much lower than the paint. And granted, you can't feel it with your hands nor see it with your eyes. The paint won't be able to feel that deep of a transition if the paint is sitting higher than the metal. So like I said, it's kind of hard to see with your eyes or hands, but you'll be able to, you'll notice it when you paint it. So it's just best to run it over with the block real quick. In a quick cross-hatch pattern. Then of course you want to block any Bondo or mud or glaze that the body guys have put on there. Kind of like that Sickens primer because it's a bit brown, almost like guide coat. And that's what we're going to use next is some guide coat. And we're just going to sand out the rest of this texture from the UV primer with 500 grit on an orbital DA. Next 500 grit red Scotch-Brite, I'm going to hit the edges and make sure everything feels great. I also hit the whole area that was exposed when I primed because UV primer does overspray, just not as far as catalyzed primer. So you want to make sure you have everything scuffed up to give it that mechanical adhesion for paint. Now, unfortunately, like any used hood, this thing is rock chip city. A lot of the rock chips were filled in once they took care of the scratches from the wreck. I'll be able to fill in a couple of these chips, but I can't go obviously over the whole hood because that's just wasted time and material that's just not paid for, unfortunately. For any rock chip scratches or anything like that I want to take care of fast, I like using this fast curing system from Colad. It's a UV putty. It has no shrink. You got to give it a really good shake. And then you just grab a little bit off the top and you just skim it on real easy, real simple, and dries within seconds. So we'll just fill a couple of these rock chips. Like I said, we can't go crazy, unfortunately, because they do not pay for the whole hood to be fixed. And, you know, it's nice fixing it for a customer, but once you fix it for 1, you fix it for 2, and 2 is 3, 3 is 4. And at the end of the day, that just is a lot of money down the hole. So once that's skimmed, we're gonna hit it with our UV light. Literally only takes a second to cure. Check with the back of your nail. They all feel completely dry, and I like to give it one more coat. This UV putty has a really, really high build, so you want to make sure it's completely scraped off, or you're going to have a little bit of work ahead of you. And since these are just in my blend area, I'm going to just block these with 800 grit. You have to block combi because if you just hand sand it, it's going to look like dents because it's not completely flat. So we'll throw a block and some 800 and we should be good. Then we have to get our 800 grit and our sanding block. Just want to block in a cross-hatch pattern so it's completely smooth. Just want to knock that completely flat till there's no combi left and nothing but the chip. So now we're pretty much ready for paint. We're gonna blow it off. And then before we put it in the booth, we're gonna hit it with some wax and grease remover to help our tape stick. And then some microfiber rags just to wipe it all off. And then with that same rag, I like using window cleaner. You know, wax and grease remover really doesn't remove all the dust, you know what I mean? Sometimes it just moves it from place to place. That's why I like this window cleaner. It actually gets rid of the dust. And these microfiber rags actually don't leave any lint. Because you know, some of those rags are say they're virtually lint free. So they're not always 100% lint free. And these microfiber rags actually are. They work so well. All right, I pretty much got it all wiped down. We're gonna get it in the booth, get it taped up, and I'll come back to you when I'm ready. Alrighty, now that I got it taped up and in the booth, I like using waterborne cleaner as my final wipe. I like to do one rag wet, one rag dry, and that just ensures nothing is left on the panel. Sometimes when you leave it to evaporate, it can cause fish eyes, or you can see almost like the white marks or where it evaporated at. So I'll do one rag really, really wet, one rag dry, and a wipe on, wipe off process. I'll just do half the hood. Then we'll do the other half. And with this waterborne, you just want to keep wiping so it's all evaporated. Then we gotta make sure we pull out that beige crystal tack rag. Wipe off any extra dust nibs or dirt and any debris we might have missed with our waterborne. Now lastly, got an anti-stack gun. Gonna hit it with that on the panel. Gonna use some 410A, this 1K etch over these bare metal spots to help the waterborne paint have something to bite to and also to give it a little bit more corrosion protection. Give it like 2 or 3 translucent coats, you know what I mean? Don't want to go too heavy. All right, pretty much all ready for sealer. Make sure you're doing your spray out cards because that can kind of let you know what your gun is doing, and if there's any junk that's going to come out your gun, it'll come out on the spray out card. But this gives you a good idea of if it's going to run or whatnot. It really helps with the clear coat. So let's go ahead and throw some sealer on this, and then we can move forward. For sealer, I'm using my Sided Jet 5500 RP. This is the 130 tip. This is Speed's Hecker 5650 waterborne sealer. So we'll just give it one good coat and we'll be ready to go. I like shooting this sealer at like 24 PSI. It tends to leave it a lot less seedy than normal. Once that's all dehydrated, we'll hit it with this Centaura tack rag, this green one, just to wipe off any overspray from that sealer going down. That's all the overspray. And remember, any type of wiping process, you want to hit it with that anti-stack gun. For base, this is the lumaiii Exodus at 26 PSI. We'll give it 2 coats because Speed's Hector is wet on wet. We'll give it 1 coat, and then we'll give it a second one immediately. And then we'll also not use wet bed because you don't need wet bed on black or red. Alrighty, that's all dehydrated. So now we have our 1.5 lumaiii Exodus 8600 high solids optimum clear. We'll do 2 coats, like 1 coat fully wet, second coat kind of like a half coat, and we should be good. Appreciate it if you made it this far. Make sure you like and subscribe, please.